Hey folks, Tim Newman with Softlight Studios coming to you once again from Columbus, Ohio. In today's video, we're going to jump into part 4 and the last part in our 4-part video series on Photoshop puzzle templates. If you've been with us for the other 3 parts of this video, you now have a pretty cool puzzle template built in Photoshop, and we've explored a variety of different ways of bringing in images and building clipping masks for those puzzle pieces. And particularly in part 3, we came up with a pretty cool mechanism for creating individual pieces that are clipped in the puzzle. In this, the last part, we're going to see how to separate out individual pieces and turn those into pieces that are separated from the puzzle itself, giving us a pretty cool, partly finished, layered look, if you will. Let's take a look at this last part in this video series. Hey, as you can see through the magic of Photoshop and Adobe Premiere, I have changed my shirt color from the introductory video to what you're seeing here now. Or more likely, it took me a few days from the introduction to getting to recording this next section. Whatever the case may be, let's jump over into Photoshop and get started. Now, as you might recall, when we were last together, we had finished up with part 3 of the Photoshop puzzle template series, and I had encouraged you to save your work as puzzleexample03.psd, like you can see I have done here. So that's where we're at. Let's talk a little bit about what's there and what's next. If you come over here and look through the layers control panel, just as a refresher, we have this flag image that we brought in. We have created a clipping mask to this puzzle frame copy that we made here when we were done. We've actually got another version of the puzzle frame here that we got turned off, and we got some background layers. I think it's safe to say at this point, if you've followed along and you've gotten this far, that the puzzle frame copy could just become puzzle frame. So I'm going to double click here. I'm going to double click on the word copy and get rid of it. Then this puzzle frame layer here, I'm going to get rid of it. I don't need it anymore because I'm happy with where we ended up right here with this puzzle frame. And background layers, we're just going to leave those alone down here at the bottom. We could group them if we wanted to, but we may revisit that in a little bit. Now, what we would like to do is we would like to take this puzzle and deconstruct it a little bit. And before we do that, before we jump into that deconstruction stuff, we're going to make another copy of this. So if our deconstruction efforts go awry, we still have puzzleexample03.psd out there to fall back on. So easiest way to do that, come over here to the menu, File, Save As. Go ahead and put it on my computer locally. Going to keep it in my TDN directory. And all I'm going to do is come up here to the name, and I'm going to just click in here so I can edit the field. I'm going to change this to Puzzle Example 04. We'll leave everything else the way it is. And we'll go ahead and leave that maximize compatibility turned on. And you can see it's saving down here in the status bar, and our little asterisk gone up here outside of the parentheses, so we know it's saved. We don't have any unsaved edits there. So we now have 2 copies of that file, which is a good safety thing. What I would like to do is I would like to take some of these puzzle pieces up here with the flag in these pieces, and I'd like to move them away from the puzzle. In other words, make it look like there's some pieces we haven't put in yet. And based on the way we've set that up, that's not going to be too difficult for us to do. Step 1 in getting us to the place where we can have some of these puzzle pieces be separated from the puzzle itself is to give ourselves a little bit more working room. And the easiest way to do that would be to come here and zoom out a little bit. So I'll click a couple times to zoom out. And we are going to turn on the crop tool with the C key. And you want to make sure that you have the correct tool. And you can see it's the little cropping icon right here, and you can also see these interesting control handles in this white border that have turned on, thus indicating the crop tool is ready to go. I'm going to come up here and grab a corner. Now here's an interesting little side note here. We have noticed with free transform tool and resizing selections that aspect ratio is automatically on by default in Photoshop. In the crop tool, not the case. So if we hit the shift key, all of a sudden you'll notice that aspect ratio is locked in again, the opposite of some of the other tools. A little bit of a gotcha there, but now you know. And if we hold down the Option key on the Mac, the Alt key on Windows, you'll notice we get that uniform sizing from the center, and of course the shift key is keeping us aspect ratio constrained. I'm going to come out here and add in quite a bit of room to our puzzle on the outside edge, right about there. And at this point, if we're not happy with the crop that we put in here, we can always hit escape, or if we like it, we can hit the return or enter key, and we now have that transparent area around the outside of the image. And by the way, that transparent area exists on every one of these layers. It exists on the flag image, the puzzle frame, and on all these backgrounds. You can see it looking at them that in fact that new transparent area has been added to every layer here. So there may be some adjustments we have to make as we go along. Okay, what we'd like to do now is before we get started on this, we would like to take this flag image and this puzzle frame here, and we would like to make a copy of it. So you can see I have highlighted both of these. Both of those layer strips are active, and I'm going to do a Command J on the Mac. That's a Control J on Windows, and that gives me another copy of both of those layers. Layer effects and all, which is kind of cool. Now, before I do anything else, I'm going to do a Command J on the Mac, Control J on Windows again, and now you can see I have got a secondary copy of all of those guys. So that's kind of nice. A really easy way to grab those and make multiple copies. So here's what we're going to do now. What we're going to do is we're going to go in here and we're going to select one puzzle piece, and we're going to take that and move it off on its own. And then we are going to take the flag that's left there, and we are going to subtract that puzzle piece from it. Okay, sounds complicated. It's really not. And just a couple steps we need to go through to make that happen. First thing we're going to do is we're going to come down here to where it says puzzle frame and flag image, and let's go ahead and group those together, right? So I'm going to just highlight both of those, and I'm going to say, okay, this is my complete, oops, got the caps key on. I know it doesn't matter, but apparently I'm anal retentive. So I'm going to say this is the complete puzzle. All right, so we've got a copy of it there, and we'll turn that off. We're just keeping this here in case anything bad happens, and we have something we can get back to. Now we're going to take these next two guys here, the first copy that we made, flag image copy, and I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of the word copy. I know it's a copy, that's fine. I'm going to take that out of there, and where it says puzzle frame copy, I'm going to take the word copy out of there as well. And then I'm going to select both of these and turn these into a group with the group icon down here. And I'm going to say that this is partial puzzle. Okay, now it's not a partial puzzle yet, but it's going to be soon. And then we're going to come up here and we're going to do the same thing here. I'm going to double click here on this name. I'm going to get rid of the copy to on that because that's a flag image again. And I'm going to come up here to where it says puzzle frame copy to, and I'm going to get rid of the copy to on there. And in fact, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say that this is piece. And we're going to think of this puzzle kind of like we do spreadsheets, so you can keep track of this, and you could actually deconstruct every single piece of this puzzle if you wanted to. But I'm going to say that this is piece from row 1, 0, 1 to column 0, 1, right? So if we think of this puzzle, these are rows and these are columns. So this is going to be this piece right here. So we'll do that. So I like that. And then we're going to just group both of these together. We'll make this into a group. I'm going to rename this group, and I'm going to call this again piece row 0, 1, column 0, 1, right? Because we're going to want to keep those guys together. Okay, so first thing we need to do here is let's go ahead and turn this group off right here. So right now all we're seeing is one flag image and one puzzle frame. And if I come over here and I say, you know, I'd really like to select one of the puzzle pieces out of the puzzle frame, I could make this layer active. So puzzle frame is now active inside this partial puzzle group. I'm going to grab my magic wand tool, and I'm going to make sure anti-alias, we kind of always leave that on. We're going to make sure contiguous is on because we don't want to jump over into other pieces. So contiguous will do that for us. And we're going to make sure that sample all layers is turned off. So we're not sampling down through any of the other layers here. We're staying right on this layer. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to click on here. And I'm not too concerned about the tolerance because we remember this is just all filled with white, even though we can't see it with the flag image on. I'm going to click there, and you can see I got one puzzle piece selected. Let's take it out. Okay, we just deleted it. Now I have the black background showing through, right? So it doesn't look like it got deleted. That's where that's coming from. So what we may want to do is think about that in a little bit. We'll get back to that, right? But let's turn the black background off for right now so we can kind of see the result of what we've done so far. We'll deal with that background issue in a little bit. I told you a little bit ago we were going to come back to that. Okay, so I'm good with that. That takes that puzzle piece out of there. Okay, now we just have to do the opposite. So now what we're going to do is we are going to close this group down for a little bit. We're going to turn on this piece row 01, column 01 right here, this group. And you can see all of a sudden it's back, right? Now what we're going to do is we're going to open this up. We're going to come down here and make sure that the piece row 01, column 01 layer right here is active, right? And now the easiest way to do this is we want to get rid of all the other puzzle pieces from this, right? So we're going to come up here, and Magic Wand Tool's already on. We've already got everything set up. Let's just click up here because that gets us the puzzle piece that we just took out. How do I get the rest of the puzzle pieces? Real easy. I invert that selection. So I could do the shortcut for that, or I could come up here if I don't remember. Select inverse, Shift Command I on the Mac, Shift Control I on Windows. All right, Shift Command I. There we go. Now we got everything but that puzzle piece, right? Let's go ahead and hit delete. Hard to tell at the moment that everything else is gone because they're all still lined up, right? But if we wanted to confirm that real quickly, come down here. Look at that. One piece all by itself now that's sitting out there. And we confirm that by taking out the puzzle pieces that are in that other layer. So let's go ahead and do a Command D on the Mac, Control D on Windows to get rid of that selection. Now, we could take this entire group here because we need to keep these together. We want to keep all this stuff moving together here. We're going to hit the V key, and we're going to take this, and we're just going to move this out. Look at that. That puzzle piece is now separated from the puzzle. And if I take this corner here with the Move tool and I say, hey, let's rotate this a little bit, you can see that we are kind of rotating this puzzle piece so it's not lined up with the puzzle itself. And we'll kind of move it up here off to the edge because it's just kind of sitting there waiting to be put into our puzzle to finish it. Now remember earlier, and this just takes us all the way back to the beginning of the puzzle example 03 file that we worked on in the part 3 of the Photoshop puzzle template series. Remember I said we wanted to clean up the edges of that puzzle template that we brought in, the original JPEG file that we consumed to create this template. And I said because later when we rotate this, those edges that we drag off the side of the screen could all of a sudden reappear. That's exactly why we did that. See this frame right here? This is the edge of the content for this layer that we're currently moving around. And if we had not cleaned up those borders outside of it, all of a sudden we'd be seeing all sorts of extra borders here. I'm going to go ahead and hit the return key or the enter key to commit this change. And there you go. You got that sitting there just like that, ready to go. Let's say you wanted to take out one more puzzle piece real quickly. Here's the way to do that. I'm going to hit the A key just to turn this guy off right here. So we have unactivated this entire group here. And we're going to close that down. Now, if we think about this, the next puzzle piece that we want to get out of here, maybe it's this one right here, okay? That would be our row 02, column 01 piece, right? That's still in this partial puzzle here. So let's just make the group active. Let's do a Command J on the Mac, Control J on Windows on that group. And you can see we have partial puzzle copy again. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to make this into piece row 02, column 01, right? And then we got to make a couple changes here. So just to keep things clear in our heads, I'm going to just turn these two groups off so we don't have anything messing with what we're thinking about here. Now, with this partial puzzle group active, so I'm going to click on that to make it active, and I'm going to come down here to this puzzle frame. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to grab my Magic Wand tool, and I'm going to select here. This is the piece that I want to separate out. I'm going to delete it, okay? Now it's no longer a part of this puzzle frame, which is cool. That's what we want. Now, something I didn't show you the first time around, but you can watch me do this here. I'm not even going to undo that selection. I'm going to go ahead and close partial puzzle down. I'm going to turn off the visibility for this group. See, my selection's hanging with me there. I'm going to come up here and turn this piece row 02, column 01 group on. Let's make it active, open it up, and we're going to come down here and make puzzle frame active here. And now we got the same thing we did last time. We want to get rid of all the other pieces other than this one that we took out of the other group. Again, Command Shift I on the Mac, Control-Shift-I on Windows. We have now selected everything but that piece, the opposite of the selection we just had. Let's hit the delete key. Look at that. One puzzle piece all by itself. Let's go ahead and do that. Command D on the Mac, Control D on Windows to undo that selection. Let's go ahead and turn some things back on here so we can see our piece row 01, column 01. Our piece row 02, column 01 is still on. Let's turn our partial puzzle back on. Now it looks like that piece is lined back up there, and that's just because we haven't moved it. Let's come up here and grab the group as a whole. The V key to bring up the move tool, right? Confirm that you got the right tool. Let's take this and drag it off out of here. And let's rotate this a little bit. We'll kind of line it up with this other piece here. So they're kind of sitting there. I like that. Let's hit the return key or the enter key, whichever you prefer to call it. A key to turn that off. And now you can see we have our puzzle pieces separated out from the puzzle and totally off by themselves. Now, one of the things that we had here that was a little bit of a concern is if I turn this back on, you see that kind of black background layer here. Let's just fix that real quickly. There's a couple of ways we could address that. One is we could come in here and make this layer active and turn it on. And let's just grab the paint bucket tool. Black is already the foreground color. If it's not, make sure you hit the D key to bring up the default colors. And if they're in the reverse order, i.e. white then black, just hit the X key to switch them. And paint bucket tool in there. And there we go. Those puzzle pieces separated out by themselves. I'm not really crazy about the black background here. Let's turn on the white background here. And let's do the same thing here. Switch colors. Paint bucket tool still on, so we could just go ahead and fill in there. I like that a lot better. I think that looks much nicer. Now, one thing that you might say here is, well, it'd be really great to have this black background stay here between these puzzle pieces and have the white background being on the outside frame like it is here. And I'll tell you what, I am going to turn that in to a part 5 video here. Wasn't actually going to do a part 5 video for this, but I think that you can see that would be a good next step here, and it'll just give us another challenge to work with, which I think is always fun. So I think that's where we're at for now. What I encourage you to do, and this would be kind of fun, for anybody that's watching this out here, and you got the link off of my Facebook page or off the Facebook group, go ahead and separate out some puzzle pieces. If you're really industrious, separate all of the puzzle pieces out and take the whole thing and break it apart. A lot of layer work, a lot of magic wand selection and invert selection and delete work, but easily done. And I think if you stick with this row and column system here, makes it real easy to keep track of them and get an idea of where you're at when you're working on the puzzle pieces. So we will attack the black border versus the white frame in part 5 of this, which we'll come back to here in a day or two. So that's it. There is our video on taking this puzzle and separating some pieces out and making them look like they're separate from the puzzle as a whole, which I think is really super cool. Thanks for tuning in and checking out this part 4 of the Photoshop puzzle template series. Got that surprise part 5 that'll be coming at you soon. Hope you are getting a lot out of this and learning a lot of the ins and outs of some of these tools as you're kind of working your way through this fun exercise. And I think that's what we got for you in this video. Thanks for joining us. And remember, as we always say, learning equals skills. Practice equals mastery. We'll see you out there.